Hello! So today we're taking a look at the Velocity XL from Black Square in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We're on the ground here at Shady Cove within the simulator. So this is in southern Oregon. It's a piece of scenery you can download from the internet. So if you go and search for Shady Cove, you'll find it. It's a wonderful little aeroplane, this Velocity XL. So it's one of the earliest ones, I think, that Black Square developed for Flight Simulator. But it doesn't mean it's any the less for it. It's actually great fun. And I don't know why I'd never looked at it previously, but I looked this morning and thought, what aeroplanes haven't I covered yet? And obviously discovered it. So you can see, looking at the quality of the modelling, it's typical of Black Square. It's pretty immaculate all over. So the 3D structures and the pattern, the material modelling is very, very good throughout. So if you go looking around any of these structures, they're very, very nicely done, very clean and tidy. So obviously this one has no wear and tear on it. It looks factory new no matter where you look at it. So in the real world, the Velocity XL is a kit aircraft, so that's why, I guess, why it says experimental all over it. So if we go inside, the pilots should disappear and we can have a little look. So we've got the screens on either side. And you also, depending on what you've got installed, it will automatically show the appropriate avionics kit. So I've got the TDS GTN XI installed, so it's there on the panel. So on the later Black Square aircraft, you get switches to choose, but not in this one. So, you know, it depends on what you've got installed, will be reflected by what's in the cockpit. Okay, so if we have a look around the interior, it's neat and tidy. Like I said, it's showroom shiny, which is quite amusing to me, because we get so used to seeing weathered aircraft in the simulator. It's quite nice to see something that's absolutely brand new without a scratch on it. Okay, so shall we take it for a fly and see how we get on? Let's go and switch from the drone camera to the internal view then, and see what we need to do to get the aircraft running. So I'm going to turn head tracking on at this point, so you can see straight away we've got access to go and close the doors. So if I go and click on the handle up there, the door will close, and you get everything's got nice sounds around the cockpit. I'm going to start the engine with the door open, just so you get to hear it. So first things first, the fuel cut-off valves are right in front of you, in front of the quadrant here. So we're going to go and push them both in, which will allow fuel through. Then we're going to put the mixture to rich. The propeller, I've got that mapped to a control. I'm going to put the propeller to max RPM. I'm going to crack the throttle open. And then there's banks of switches overhead for the main functions. So you've got battery master, the mags and engine start. You've got alternator master, fuel pump, pitot heat, radio master, and then your external lights and cabin lights are up above. So battery master to on. And then we'll go and turn the mags on. We'll run the fuel pump for a few seconds, and then turn the engine over. And it starts immediately. So we can go and put the alternator master on and then turn the radio master on, and you'll see everything else boot up in the cockpit now. It's getting ready to do a tours test. So we'll go past the status screens on the TDS, and it should reflect exactly where we are in the world. So we'll zoom out a little bit.
TOS system test OK.
Okay. We could do the same on this one actually, couldn't we? If we just zoom out slightly. Okay, so you can see you've got some basic autopilot controls here. This is a common panel you see in lots of aeroplanes actually. What else do we need to do before we get going? So let's just go and have a little look at the engine. So if we open the throttle up, so we're just looking at those temperatures. So you've got the oil PSI is good, and the oil temperature. The exhaust gas temperature is almost, it's freezing cold at the moment, so Obviously it will warm up once we give the aeroplane some power and get into the air. So let's go and close that door. So you can see the doors do actually change the sound. If we go outside, it sounds very good. And you can hear a difference between front and rear for the engine. Okay, so let's go and taxi out to the flight line, and then we'll get the external lights on and we'll take it for a fly. So I'm hoping we won't clip the wing on the fence post here. I don't think we will. Shady Cove is a really nice airfield to go and mess around in the simulator with small aeroplanes. Like I said, it's in southern Oregon. You can get it from Orbx. I'll try to remember to put a link in the notes of the video. There's numerous houses alongside the airfield that have light aircraft parked in their front yard. It's quite amusing. So park and brake on for the moment. Then overhead we'll go and put the landing lights on, strobe lights on, nav lights on. Don't need the cabin lights, and I think we're pretty much good to go. Okay, so worth pointing out before we start rolling, because of the canard configuration, this aircraft has no flaps. So it's designed such that the nose will stall first at low speed. So it's incredibly stable because of that. So it does mean you have to be mindful of your approach speed, because it will just mush straight into the floor if you're too slow. Okay, let's go. Let's go and detune the comm radio. So we. Oh, okay, we got the both have got the same frequency. Let's just go and tune a random frequency, and so we don't hear that. Okay, open the throttle up. I think we can go pretty much full throttle. Yep, it's fine. The manifold pressure's great. It's right up against the limit, but right, so let's stay on the dirt track here. Keep an eye on the airspeed and gently pull back, and it's it jumps into the air once it gets enough airspeed. So gear up. Very, very sleek. And you can see it's holding on to its airspeed in this quite steep climb. We've got about 17 degree climb, and it's holding on to that absolutely fine. So we're going to pull the throttle and the propeller back to 75%. It's a gorgeous day out here today. I need to remember to fly around here more often. The hills of southern Oregon are absolutely beautiful in the simulator. Okay, so a huge advantage of an aircraft with canards like this is we can look out the side and there's nothing obstructing our view. So we get a wonderful view back towards the airfield. And we can circle back. And on the way back, we'll try this out with stalling it, shall we, to see how it behaves. So, just coming up to 3,400 feet. Let's pull the throttle back to idle. So give it 10 degrees nose up and watch the speed fall off. So we're getting near stall speed and pulling back, and it's just mushing. Nothing untoward at all.
Sync rate.
So obviously we're getting now a warning from the TDS, which is great. Okay. So you can see the airfield down there alongside the river at Shady Cove. So let's bring it in for a touch and go and see how we get on. So obviously we need to descend first. Descend straight into this hill maybe. That's interesting. What's the alarm? Not quite sure what that alarm was. I'll have to go and read the book, I guess. It's always fun, isn't it, doing these first flights? So, we're obviously coming in very fast. So we need to get some speed off. We're getting a terrain warning popping up, which is fine. We can see the terrain. It's a nice clear day.
Pull up. Pull up.
So this is going to be a touch and go, remember. Should we inhibit tours for the moment? Just while we're test flying this. So the wind has actually just kicked off a little bit there and pushed us sideways. So we're staying fast on purpose, remember. Just for this first look. So full throttle. And back into the air and gear back up. And pull the power back into the green. So this time on the way back downwind, we'll just let the plane fly nice and level and see how fast it goes. I imagine it's going to be pretty rapid. It is called the Velocity XL after all. So let's turn the propeller up. So there's the airfield. We'll go down to that far hill and let it stretch its legs a little bit. So we'll pull the RPM just inside the marker. We'll push the power out. Okay, so we're coming up through 170 knots, 175 knots, 180 knots, and the engine's looking absolutely happy doing that. So it does looks like it'll max out about 195 knots with the propeller and the power within limits. On a nice calm day. Okay, let's pull them back a bit. And we'll roll back in for an approach and see what we can do. So you can see the airfield out there. Travelled quite some distance doing that speed run, didn't we? So let's see what we can do in terms of side slipping. How will it behave? Seems to be fine. Okay, let's bring the gear down, which will give us some drag. So we're just descending in a side slip towards the airfield. So we probably want to approach at about 80 knots. If we can. So you can see it's accelerating again. So let's just pull this in gently. A bit more side slipping to scrub off some more of that speed.
500.
Tours is kicking in there to tell us what's going on. So I'm starting to bring the throttle back in to hold our airspeed. So idle, just hold it off. And wheel brakes. It's remarkably straightforward, although there's hardly a breath of wind today, which helps us enormously. But it's remarkably straightforward to operate. Okay. It's a lovely looking little aeroplane, isn't it? You can see why so many people have bought and built them over the years. So should we go and park up next to that tractor over there? Maybe pop the door open while we're taxiing. Okay, so parking brake on. So all we have to do is starve the engine of fuel, and that will stop that, and then we can go and turn the various systems off on the aeroplane, and we'll be good to go again. So cold and dark. It's very cool, isn't it? And you can hear the heat contraction in the engine as it cools down. Very cool. So I don't think I showed you in the video actually, you can lift this panel up, all the breakers are under here, they all work. So you can play around with failing pieces of hardware while you're flying as well, which is typical of Black Square, to be honest. So there you go. The Black Square Velocity XL in Flight Simulator. This is my first look at it. Obviously it's been out for a very long time, but I've just never got around to looking at it. So I bought it from JustFlight this morning. It wasn't very expensive. They have a sale on at the moment, so if you're interested in it, go have a look. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll hopefully see you again soon. Take care.